Okay, we are back once again with the Toys That Made Us here on It Figures. And this is episode 2 of the Toys That Made Us. It's a documentary looking back at some of the most classic toys ever made.
This episode of the Toys That Made Us was all about Barbie.
My sister had a lot of Barbies. So I don't know anything about Barbie that much either. I didn't play with the Barbies, believe it or not, but I did not. I did play with some 12-inch figures, though. I did have G.I. Joe. I did have $6 Million Man. But she had all these Barbies. And she did have the Bionic Woman as well. But other than that, of her owning them, yeah, I have no idea about Barbie or where she came from or how it was created or anything. So I thought this was going to be a pretty interesting documentary.
And as for me, growing up, it was just the first part of my life, it was just me and my brother. So, of course, we had no Barbie dolls. We didn't get Barbie dolls. But we did get things like G.I. Joe and $6 Million Man and eventually Star Wars. They had the 12-inch Star Wars figures. So we did get some of those. But my sister didn't come in to play until 10 years after I was born. So by the time she came in and by the time she was able to play with dolls, yeah, we bought her Barbie. But other than that, the only one that I knew anything about Barbie dolls from was my mom. And she had her own little collection of Barbie dolls that her brothers liked to tear up and melt and do all kinds of crazy bad things to that she would make her upset. So outside of that, I have no idea what Barbie is or why I played. I never played with anything of Barbie, so I never had anything to do with it, is what I'm getting at.
Later on, my wife actually got into collecting Barbies, and that became kind of a big problem because Barbies, or at least the ones that collectors collect, are not cheap. They are super expensive. They're not, a $12 action figure or $20 action figure. These Barbies were hundreds of dollars she was buying. And she got on this thing where she bought, I don't even know how many. Every other week there was a new $100 Barbie sitting at the house. And so we have quite a lot of these $100 Barbies. But I will say this for those, they're collector Barbies. They're not the Malibu Barbie or whatever they sell in these stores. The stuff that she was getting was from, like, My Fair Lady. And they're like movie Barbies basically, and she has Ursula from Little Mermaid, and I think I bought her one of the My Fair Lady Barbies. I think she has a couple from I haven't looked at them for a while. I think she has a few from Gone with the Wind and stuff like that, and they're awesome. The material they used for the outfits and the sculpt of the face, and they're amazing. They really are. They look fantastic, and that's why they cost $100, $150 a piece.
Well, it's also the brand names. You're talking about, movies, because it was in the 90s that they started to do that, and actually, they don't mention that in this documentary. They mention the collector's editions of Barbie, but that's it. They don't mention, what collector's editions of. They don't mention My Fair Lady or Star Wars or Star Trek or Gone with the Wind and all the other, the ones that you're talking about that had came out. There was tons of those that came out, and they don't mention, they don't go into it very big. They talk more about the retail stuff, the Malibu Barbie and the bikini Barbie and this and that, and all the clothes and whatnot.
So in the documentary itself, it tells you where the doll came from, the original doll, where it came from. And again, I never knew this. And it's pretty freaking shocking to see some of the origins of these things that all these girls love and all these collectors love, who probably have no idea really where the thing came from.
Looking back on it, in this day and age, if they were to do that, there would be so much political incorrectness around it that it would probably get banned and panned, and I don't think that toy would have ever been made.
No, it wouldn't. If that came out today and they found out, again, I don't really want to spoil it for you if you're going to watch a documentary, but if they found out the original origins of the Barbie, no, absolutely not. I don't think it would have gotten past the first run of them. It would have been gone. It would have been all over CNN and all over the news and all over the internet and all over everything. And no, it wouldn't exist, I don't think.
That doesn't mean that it didn't have a hard time getting produced either, because when you watch this documentary, it does take them a while to get the Barbie line going. And I never knew who created Mattel, the toy company Mattel, and apparently it was the same people that eventually created Barbie. They did mention another line in the Mattel series that is going to be really interesting to me, and that was the Hot Wheels line. They mentioned it in here, but of course this is all about Barbie. So they go into the whole history of Barbie, and like I said, not knowing anything about Barbie, this was really interesting to me to learn about it all. But I wouldn't say I still have an interest in Barbie at all.
Oh no, I mean, I don't think it was meant for you to run out and start buying Malibu Barbies after watching this. It was just to be informative, to let you know where it came from. And the other thing that I found interesting, again, was the people who created Mattel and created Barbie got into a big controversy too about what they did. And I can't believe the stuff they did to make money, because once the Barbie line started kind of going downhill, they tried to keep it, afloat, and they did some illegal stuff, and it got into some major trouble.
And what surprises me is that they actually got caught doing it and paid the price for it.
Yeah, they did. And eventually, I think they did come back later in, but I don't think they ever were in charge of it anymore. Speaking about Malibu Barbie, I do remember when Malibu Barbie came out. I remember that when that was all the rage, and I remember her cars. I think she had a Corvette. I think my sister had one of her cars that they came out with, and they came out with a Barbie dream house and all. And I think she had all that stuff. So I do remember all that stuff.
Well, yeah, I remember when all of that came out. Yeah, I remember that was like the late 70s, and it was during the 70s. So, yeah, I remember when all that came out. And I do remember, I mean, I had some, my cousins and family members and friends and everything, girls that I knew of that had a lot of that stuff. They had the Barbie dream house. They had the Corvette, and they had the Ken dolls. Eventually they made Ken dolls. They had all this stuff, and they collect all the Barbie clothes and everything. And that was a lot of what Barbie was all these clothes and all the fashions to them, because that was the big thing about creating Barbie, was to have something to change clothes on.
When you're mentioning Ken, I found this really fascinating. The person who made Barbie named it after her daughter. Her daughter was named Barbie, so that's where the name Barbie came from. And her son was named Ken, so that's where Ken came from. You're talking about sister-brother thing here, and of course Ken ended up being the one dating Barbie, so that just seemed kind of weird.
Yeah, but that wasn't the intent there, though, David.
Well, I realize, but it was an odd thing that, a sister-brother was made into a doll franchise like this, and they were meant to be dating.
It's a Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia thing.
I guess. I just thought it was weird. I mean, they never, again, that was just a name, but I don't know. I just thought that was kind of weird. They never mentioned that either.
Well, they named her children, and then later on, they actually did say, well, we got the name for Barbie from her daughter Barbara. They didn't say that about Ken. They didn't say, well, we got the name for Ken from her son. They didn't say that in this documentary, but you can kind of assume that's where they got it from. But I don't think there was any kind of weird intentions there.
And we mentioned this in the first one with the Star Wars figures. Again, they had all the people in this that made the Barbies, that sculpted them, and where they came from, and all that stuff. And these people just loved their jobs. They loved what they did. And it's rare to see that. And I mean, they're all retired and whatnot now, and they're just sitting around with all Barbies and action figures in their house, which is awesome, again, to see. And they love their job, and it's just awesome to see that.
normally I probably wouldn't have watched something like this. I probably wouldn't, because I wouldn't care. I mean, it's Barbie. I'm not into Barbie. I don't really give a damn, to be very honest and blunt. But it was interesting to actually sit down and watch it and find out what it took to create it, and what it and the span of its lifetime, and what it's doing today. And it's actually really interesting. It turned out really a lot more interesting to me than I thought it would, and I liked it. I think it was a really good documentary. I think they did a good job on it. It did leave me with some questions, like the first episode did, but outside of that, I would give this episode a 5 out of 5.
Yeah, I would too. I would also give it a 5 out of 5. Now, just like what we did with Star Wars, I'm going to bring you my very first ever It Figures Barbie review right after this review. And it's going to be of, I'm probably going to do My Fair Lady, because that's one of my favorite ones that my wife got. It's the one where she was at the races, and she was wearing the black and white outfit with the big hat. Overall, it's just a great figure. I mean, a lot of the stuff she got was really cool, but that's still one of my favorites. So right after here, if there's any Barbie collectors who want to see that Barbie figure, and it's probably vintage now, or whatever you want to call it, tune in. It's going to be right after this review.
But this is going so well, I can't wait to see the next one, because it's a toy line that I really did get into later on in the 80s. That was awesome. I loved the toy lines for this.
So there you go. There's episode 2 of the Toys That Made Us, and this is a great series so far. There's 2 more episodes in this season, and they haven't announced what the second season is yet, but I have some ideas. I'm thinking maybe Lego, maybe Cabbage Patch Kids or something like that.
And also, please subscribe to this channel. Keep subscribing. Tell all your friends about us. Tell your family members. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the little bell up there so you know when we post things. And like us and give us some feedback. Give us some comments. Give us some feedback what you think of this.